Hi, my name is Mason Shahadi. Today I will be talking about the podcast report, What No One Tells You About Rapid Growth by Mylett, who is joined by Ryan Bartlett. So to quickly just go over the statement of intent, we will start by analyzing and summarizing the podcast. We will then watch a short video clip, about 5 minutes long. Then I'll introduce the podcast host and the guest speaker. I'll then talk about the one main thing that has to do with the podcast. I'll then apply the 3 key points of the video, correlate it back to the coursework, and then showcase it in a personal and professional setting. So in this podcast, Ed Mylett interviews Ryan Bartlett, who is the founder of the rapid growing company True Classic, and they talk about a bunch of different things, just about how he got to where he is, how fast he scaled his business. They talk about scaling without sacrificing culture, just about how the challenges of growing very fast, and how he maintains a strong company culture. And then they also talk about finding the right seat on the bus when it comes to hiring people. We'll get a little bit more into that later on, but those are just a couple of the things that they touch on throughout the podcast.
100 on you and been in that position somewhere or close to it before. But in general, talk about your hiring and firing practices. Are you more of a hire for the position, or are you like, this is an incredibly great person, we're going to get them on the bus and then we'll find the seat? And then B, take a while on it. And then B, when do you know it's time to let somebody go? And do you actually do it oftentimes? How do you terminate people?
I haven't done it in a while, unless it's somebody that has started with us that's a kind of an OG that I have the best relationship with.
Okay.
It tends to always go by relationship when we let people go. I've also just realized that if I do it, it tends to go much better than if like a manager does it. For whatever reason, I think I'm just able to level with people and they don't get in their head about the reason. And ultimately, it's us that have to pull the trigger. But it's really the team that around them that fires them, right? Because so what'll happen is when you have a bunch of A players and you bring in a B player, the A players don't want to play with the B player because what it does is it forces all of them to work harder and keep up the slack, right? It's like the guy in high school who didn't want to work on the project, who everyone else had to do all that work, and you're bummed about this guy. You're like, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
So inevitably it starts bubbling up very quickly when it doesn't work. And then we have to make the call on it, but it's not after a lot of feedback. That's like number one. We always try to give a lot of feedback to people, but in terms of our hiring process, it's lengthy. And in my opinion, it's too lengthy. Because I'm such a move fast guy that I tend to always bet more on the human but like if you ask our executive team or leadership team, they would say, we have to do a homework assignment. We have to do this. We have to do that. Like they have to do a personality test. So we're getting really granular with people to see if they're the right fit, because we've quizzed people that aren't the right fit and we know which personalities just don't work here now. So that's really the hiring process. Sometimes it can take like a month and a half, which is just mind blowing. And then they need another 4 weeks after that to quit their job or whatever. So that's our hiring process. And then
what about bus seats? Will you hire someone because they're extraordinary and then find the right seat, or you'll move them around? Do you do that?
Yeah, for sure. I do a lot of that because we love generalists over here. And there are certain jobs where you have to be a specialist, like CFO is one where you just have to know the numbers, right? Like there's no generalist running our books. I'll tell you that.
Right. Better
like,
not be.
They only are, they're math nerds, right? Which is exactly what you need. And like our in-house lawyer, like obviously you need to be, you can't be a generalist.
They're not over on social media marketing, right?
No, they're not. They're not making posts, thank God. But I would say that, it definitely is a DNA thing, and we have core values, and you have to kind of fit the bill on all those core values. So you have to move fast. You have to move with empathy. You have to execute like a pro. You have to be creative, and you have to harness grit. And those are really what we look for in people. And really who fits that bill, I'll tell you, is the entrepreneurs. So now we're like, well, maybe we should just hire like all entrepreneurs moving forward, because what entrepreneurs are so great at is wearing all these different hats.
Ooh,
and they
very
may
good.
not be a master of
Yep.
anything, but they are a jack of all trades. And I love the jack of all trades guys. I would also say that some of the most valuable people that we have are the creatives. It's the ones that understand storytelling at a high level, that can look at an email and just go, guys, what story are we really trying to tell here? Are we really just trying to sell the percentage off? Or are we trying to show people that if you take this piece of clothing and this one, you match it together, it can make an outfit, and that's why you should buy it, not just because of the percentage of the sales promo. Like, you need those people to be a voice of reason on your creative. Otherwise, you'll just get lost in the performance marketing aspect, and you'll always be kind of like trying to hack together to get a click or whatever it is to make it look good in the analytics. But creatives just have that magic sauce that you just can't buy. It's like you either kind of have it or you don't. And man, do I value that in an organization.
What a great answer. 150.
So the host of the show is Ed Mylett. He's a global speaker, a 2-time best-selling author, TV host, top-ranked podcast host, and he's considered one of the most inspiring speakers of our time. And he started off in a real estate business at a very young age, sold that off. He's very successful in a lot of other businesses, and he does his podcast, and he interviews a lot of successful people. One of those successful people is Ryan Bartlett. He's the CEO of True Classic Clothing, and before that, he was the founder, CEO, and SCO of Direct. So in the podcast, they talk a little bit about finding the right seat on the bus for people, and to me, that was the main message. In the podcast, Ryan talks about how they scaled effectively, and how they tie the concept of finding the right seat into their business. And he just talks about how teams and businesses need to adapt and make sure that each individual is seated in the right place, so that they can thrive and contribute effectively to the overall vision of that business. So sometimes people will apply to the job that is very specific and they're looking to get into, for example, like a CFO. You're not going to take someone who has a creative mind and is looking to do digital media and put them in that CFO spot. But in many other cases, for them at least, there's a lot of openness, and he talks about how they'll get someone to come interview who could fit many different spots, and they take a lot of how that person is built, whether it's creativity or focus-minded or whatever it is. They'll try and find the right seat on the bus for that person. So that's just the one thing that stuck out to me. So the 3 key points, the first one was the hiring and firing process. He talks a little bit about the hiring process, how it's a 2-month thing. They have a bunch of series of interviews that they conduct, making sure that it's the right person job fit, making sure that they're getting people that fit their business, fit their brand, and that leads me into the firing process, where if they have someone who doesn't fit that they didn't catch during their their hiring process, he talks about how in a lot of cases it's hard for them to fire someone, but he thinks that it's easier on the person that they're firing if he's the one doing it. So in many cases he'll be the one letting people go, but he just talks about how it's better that way, he feels like, because he can relate to them a little bit more. Number 2 is seating on the bus. We talked about that before, just making sure that individuals are placed in the right spot so that the organization can thrive and they can be successful. And then the third one is A versus B players. They talked about this in the video. Pretty much what that means is if you have a team of A players who are all on the same trajectory and they all have the same ideas, and you put a B player in with them, someone who thinks differently or works differently, they're going to stick out. And that can be good or that can be bad depending on what role that B player plays. So if the A players are all people that work hard and have the same vision, and you put a B player in there that maybe works a little slower or has different visions and doesn't want to do it the way that everyone else does it, they're going to push them out of that group. So those were just the key points from the podcast that I picked up. So the correlation to the coursework, I saw that course objective number 6, which says discuss the roles and methods of recruitment and development, which also ties in with the liberal learning goal 1 and 2 and the business management goals of 1 and 3. That fit the podcast very well. Just talking about how they get their people and the methods that they use to get those people on board. And then the course objective 7, convey objectives, steps, and tools in employee selection process. Like I said before, their hiring process is very elongated. It's a 2-month span, making sure that it's the right person, job fit for both the person that is interviewing and the job. And then course objective 8, describe the goals and methods of performance management. That talks a little bit about A versus B players, making sure that the performance of all the A players fits the same as someone that you may put in there. And if it doesn't, then you know that you're probably not going to meet your goals and be successful if you put someone in that's not like everyone else. So I would apply this to my personal life, finding the right place for people in organizations. For the lacrosse team, sometimes people come in that played a certain position when they were in high school or throughout their life, and they get to our team and our organization, and we may ask them to do something different, making sure that they're in the best possible position for the group, for themselves to succeed. That's how I'd apply it to my personal life. And then professional life, I consider school my professional life at this point. Yes, I have 2 jobs, but my number 1 priority is school. So just being a part of a club right now and making sure that the people within that club, that organization, are the right fit for that. That process between bringing people in, letting them see what it's like, making sure that it's people that we know beforehand have a good work ethic and are right for our organization, that makes us successful as a club. So I think that's very important, both in professional and personal life. So to wrap it all up, we analyzed and summarized the podcast. We watched a short video clip, introduced the podcast host and guest speaker. We talked about the one main thing, applied the 3 key points on the video, and then correlated it back to the coursework, and then we showcased it in a professional and personal setting.